Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Tackle Shop Live. What up, WB Jones?
Right there, you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream?
Chris Benninger, how you doing today, buddy?
You called me up, you told me I'm your
Man, oh man, oh man.
You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real. You make me smile when
Jim Saban, how you doing, Jim? Sam and Sam in the house. Sam and Sam, how are you guys? You are doing fine, Sam. Dave Richardson, how are you? Michael Bradley. Yo, Frank Garvey's here. Lane Graves. What's up, Lane? Conway Hayden. Hey, Conway. How are you, buddy? Joseph Cascarino, man, we were just talking about you. It's all good, bro. You know that. Warren Guttrell, how you doing? Brock Pickett. Matthew, how you doing, Matthew? Bob Donahue's here. Kevin Carpenter, how are you? Yes. We got a huge show for you tonight. Troy LaFeva, how you doing, buddy? LaFeva? Brian Moffitt. Hey, Brian. How you doing, buddy? Grimy Fishing. Yo, brother. Mark, what up? Mike Hayer's here. Joshua's here. And Greg Plank, everybody. Tammy, how you doing, Tammy? We got the whole crew tonight. And I want to say hi to my favorite neighbor, Jerry. Really my only neighbor that talks to me. No. Yes, Vince Torpey's here. Raymond Barton. And we got a great show for you guys tonight. Appreciate everybody stopping by and hanging out with us on another Thursday night here at Tackle Shop Live every Thursday at 7 o'clock in the night. Nick, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm pumped up. We got Saturday, Smallmouth Saturday coming.
Ooh, son.
I mean, can you ever get enough fishing talk?
I don't think so. The first quarter of the year is my favorite quarter for us. We do all the shows. We had Bass Fest last month. We got Smallmouth Saturday for everybody listening. We got Smallmouth Saturday this Saturday here at the shop. And it is the ultimate smallmouth show. We talk everything smallmouth. We have all the local guides and all the local talent going to be walking around the shop here and hanging out and talking fishing, talking smallmouth, because that's what it's all about. And we got a big tent set up just like we did for Bass Fest, and we're going to do seminars out there. We're going to have a great big sale in the shop here. So, we get you all fired up on some baits. You can come in here and get a good buy on them. So that's part of it for Smallmouth Saturday. Our lineup is pretty stellar for smallmouth. We got Dave Schindler, a local guide expert, man, 20 plus years on the river. And, kind of really just blazing the way for a lot of guys out there fishing. So he's going to have some great stuff to talk about. You guys can pick his brain. He's going to talk about the river and early spring, late winter, early spring fishing on the river. So that's going to be very interesting. And then we have some of you might know George Akewood stepping up to the plate. And he's going to be doing a seminar on largemouth techniques for smallies. Yes, you heard that right. Largemouth techniques for smallies. So he's going to be talking about some power fishing stuff that he loves to do, and some of the ways that he catches those big smallies out there on the river and other places. So, and then we also have Corbin Gottwalt, for all you OGs in the house that remember Corbin on the show. He is back going to do a nice seminar for us. Corbin's a guide for SFT guide service, and one of our main guides that takes out guys all year long. And he just think outside the box thinking, and he's going to do a great seminar on fishing river grass, the different types of grass, the different techniques to fish for those smallies in the grass. And I'm telling you, there are some times of the year where they get in that eel grass and in that grass, and it is unbelievable bite. He's going to break that down for us then. And then, yes, the ultimate seminar speaker is coming back into the ring. We're so lucky that you guys are going to be so lucky to have this. I mean, it is big. It is huge. It is gigantic. This speaker is going to blow you away. It was just unbelievable how this worked out. And let me tell you right now, Mike Achord's going to be here doing a seminar. Yes, you heard it first. Mike Achord's going to be in the house, Smallmouth Saturday, doing a seminar. That's right. Breaking it down for you guys on reservoir fishing smallmouth. I'm telling you, it is unbelievable. We are so lucky to nail this guy down and to have him do a great seminar for you. Man, what an unbelievable feat to get. Oh,
George,
What did I walk into?
do they make SFT hats that are any bigger?
What did I walk into? Yeah, they do. Let me show it to you.
He might need it.
Well, I'm going to be jumping in on the seminar ring and dusting off my, my speaking attire, I should say. There it is.
There's his new one. That's what he needs.
That's right. Well, so yeah,
That ought to fit.
whatever. I think I even signed it.
So, Mike, when's the last time you did a seminar?
I don't know. It's been a couple years.
So, have you been practicing like in front of the mirror? And
Well, the thing about it is the fish were taking a terrible beating on my seminar circuit because I give up the juice, and the guys go out and just slay them. So I took a couple years off, to build the population back up out in the river, and the lakes, and now I feel like I can give the juice again, and I got some new juice that I want to throw out there. And when you get me cooking out there on the seminar circuit, let me tell you, you are going to get some knowledge bombs that are going to blow you guys away. So
It's on.
it is on. It is on.
very cool.
So I'm going to be doing mine on reservoir smallmouth fishing. So, the reservoirs on the river, it's a different technique. It's a different way of thinking on there. On those types of reservoirs, and we can mix that into all kinds of stuff. Lake fishing, you can take a lot of this stuff and fish for smallies on the lakes, and just because a lot of it's surrounded by around our river doesn't mean you can't take all these techniques and apply them to all your other places. And that's what you guys will be able to do is take all the information you get from us for the type of fishing that we're going to be talking about, and you can take that information and you can go out and catch more fish, because that's what our seminar series is all about, helping anglers catch more fish. George and I are lucky, and Nick, because since he's been traveling with us, we're lucky because we get to talk to the best of the best at all these shows that we go to, the ICAST show and some of the other stuff that we get invited to talk to these guys, and you get one-on-one with the best in the world. And we take that information and we just spread it. We just bring it. We throw it out there, man. We make it. We just give it to you guys because that's what it's all about. We learn all the time, and we want you guys to learn all the time. And that's what Smallmouth Saturday is going to be all about. So don't miss out. Food trucks, Mark, is a problem. I couldn't get anybody for the show for Smallmouth Saturday. Everybody was busy. We got a big event in town this weekend. Fire and Ice and Lidditz is going on the same exact day, and all the food vendors go to that because that's a big money thing for them. It's a big event. It's a big festival. And so a lot of those guys go there, and everybody's been taken up for that. So we're just gonna have to fend for ourselves. There's some local restaurants. There's some local pizza places. You can order pizza in, you can do whatever. You can, have the van, the Bass Bus take you up, and you guys can go get something to eat or whatever. We can definitely accommodate you when it comes to staying all day, because that's what it's about. We want you to stay all day, take advantage of these seminars, and have a great time and enjoy what Smallmouth Saturday is all about. So don't miss it. Don't miss it. Everybody that misses it, they always they kills them. Once we start talking about and they start hearing how it went, it kills them. So don't miss it. All righty. Well, we got a great show for you tonight. My name is Mike Acord. This is George Acord, and behind the camera is cameraman Nick. And we do smallmouth, or I'm sorry, I'm kind of on smallmouth. We do Tackle Shop Live every Thursday night. And we appreciate all you guys for stopping in. We got a great crowd tonight. And if you would just like and share your social media app that you're on, Facebook and YouTube, and help us out. And also you want to go to our Instagram page, and you also want to go to our TikTok page and make sure you like and share that, because I tell you, we do different things on every social media platform. And, you want to be able to be in all of them. So
yeah, and check it out, because Mike's been dropping it lately. I mean, he's dropping video after video of all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that stuff gets uploaded, and, we try to keep you up to date on what's coming into the shop, what's happening, our take on some of this tackle that comes in, maybe a technique or two throughout the winter here. And, so it's a good time. So just do us a favor and like and share and help us out there. And we appreciate you guys very much. All right. So we're not going to hold back any longer. We're just going to go right into it, Nick, like we always do. And this is a section that we like to call Tackle Talk. Yeah. What's up, George Dufresne? How you doing? Bucktail fishing. What's happening, brother? LP Bass is here. Mark Anslover. Yeah, hope I got that right. Michael Bradley's also here. So, George, what do we got, man? I know it's this is Tackle Talk. This is our favorite part of the show, because we are a tackle shop and we love tackle. What do you got going on?
How about it? Well, we got a little hodgepodge tonight. Dug around the shop and found a few things that I thought were pretty interesting. And I'm going to start off with, my favorite topic, jig fishing. I'm all about the mop jig this time of the year, right?
Oh yeah.
Big profile, natural rubber, just pre-spawn dynamite, right? Too small. Say hello to my little friend. We got the monster jig up in the hizzy.
Love that thing, man.
Hop jig.
Which everybody thought was giant.
Mop jig, 1/2 ounce, 4-aught hook. Monster jig, 1 ounce, 10-aught hook. Big,
love it,
bold, and in your face. So,
and don't be scared of it, right, George?
No,
don't be scared of this thing.
No, I think we got to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
So, think swim bait. Don't think jig. Don't think flipping jig. Although, feel free to flip this bad boy if you're around some grandes. But we want you to think swim bait. We want you to think, a lot of you don't hesitate to throw a 187 Megabass Glide or a 200 River to Sea S-Waver. So what we're doing is we are suggesting.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of guys are starting to throw those big baits, and we're all starting to become more accustomed to that. And we're all starting to find out what actually will bite one of those big ass baits, which surprises you all the time. This little stupid little small, like George caught one the other day, throwing a big 6-inch swim bait, about 12 incher.
Yeah.
It was pretty big for George's standards, but you know, he did. He caught it on a 6-inch mag draft. So
Yeah, so think swim bait. This is the swim bait of jigs. Think swim jig, big profile. I'm going to trim this out with a 5/8. Rage swimmer.
Paddle tail, swim bait types thing.
Or bigger.
Mm-hmm.
I may put a Megabass freeloader. Freestyle.
Yeah. That'd be a great
mag draft on there.
And what's nice is that 10-0 hook will accompany that because as broad as that is.
I want a chunky boot foot. I want that big swim bait profile. I'm swim jigging through grass. I might be dragging this on an offshore like ledge or a hard spot on a hump, a point. And I'm going for big fish. I'm mimicking big bait, big profile, big bites, big rod, big line. We're going big.
Yeah.
We're going big. We're going 7.5 foot heavy powered rod. We're going 20-pound fluorocarbon. The big swim bait trailer, the 5/8 Rage, the mag draft freestyle type trailer. And I'm catching some big fish on this bad boy.
Now,
theoretically, I haven't even thrown it yet.
Yeah. Now that's a jig, George, and I know that a lot of times you trim your jigs up. Would you trim that one, or would you kind of just let it kind of ride?
Well, that's actually a pretty good question. The way this skirt is cut on this jig, this skirt is custom made for this jig. So I am going to let this skirt full size. The weed guard is perfect the way it is. I'm not trimming the weed guard. I'm not trimming the skirt. Now, depending on, the trailer, I may need to touch this skirt up, but I don't think you're going to need to touch this because when they made this is not like an out of the bag skirt. This is a skirt that was made specifically for this jig. And when they made this skirt proper. Great question.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It wasn't
question.
mine. It was Mark from Lisa Lake Fishing Club. He was like, "Do you modify that?" And I know what
the weed guard.
Almost perfect right there.
It's perfect.
Yep.
I think you're going to find out that you're going to start seeing some press on this jig. You're going to start seeing some big fish caught on this jig. It's pre-spawn.
Yeah.
Right now the elites are getting ready to start on what is it, Toledo Bend? Big fish, 9s, 10s, 11s. I mean, I think Rayburn last week on day 2, they had 3 11-pounders. So, when you're on those big fish environments and it's pre-spawn, this jig is money. This is a pre-spawn killer. And then the other time this is going to peak up for you on those big fish bodies of water is when they move out to the ledges and the offshore structure, humps, points, ledges. And you're going to be able to drag this with a big boot foot swim bait. So those are, you're coming into peak monster jig season.
Do you think that hook's too big for a smallmouth? Think they can get on that?
Yeah, I'm not fishing for smallmouth with this.
Yeah.
This is a 10-aught hook.
I was
Yeah.
just going to ask you that.
Yeah.
How big's that hook?
If you want to kill some smallmouth, you can get one to bite it. This is a 10-aught hook.
Yeah.
If you want to fish a big setup for smallmouth,
With the mop jig.
this is not it.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a big largemouth jig. Now I'm getting ready. I'm just sitting here getting ready for, Lunker Hunter 128 to come on and say, "Yo, dog, I've been knocking 8-pound smallies on the head with 1-ounce jigs with 10-odd hooks since before you were shitting in diapers or whatever." But Okay. More power to you, bro. I'm just saying, based upon my fishing experience, I am not targeting smallmouth with this jig. I'm targeting big lunkas.
Yeah, I think people are going to rig it a lot of different ways. I think you're going to see stinger hook options put on that. I think you're going to see, some different ways of rigging that jig, but the idea behind it is pretty cool. It's that big profile, and it's got that swim bait attitude, and then at the same time you can run it right through grass.
Well, I asked you guys a little bit earlier in the pre-production, and I just wanted to kind of see what you're thinking. That's a big hook.
Yeah.
And George, you were alluding to big rod, all that stuff. But are you going with high pound fluoro, or are you going to go with the braid?
20 fluoro.
20 fluoro.
20 fluoro all day long, perhaps 25. I keep one of my big rods spooled with 25. Matter of fact, I keep two of my big rods spooled with 25. There's not a huge diameter difference between 20 and 25 fluoro. There's a giant jump from 17 to 20, but there's not a big jump from 20 to 25. So, I do use 25. Like my A rigging is 25. Most of my glide bait fishing is 25. And some situations when I'm flipping, like particularly when it's the summer months and I'm tidal water fishing and it's, serious barnacle infestation, one of them salty years, you got to bang it up because you're just getting destroyed on those barnacles. But this jig right here, now, let's talk about that 10-0 hook. So if you peruse the hook aisle here at Susquehanna Fishing Tackle, you're going to find in the Gamakatsu brand belly weighted screw lock swim bait hooks up to 12-0.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Then you're going to go down the aisle a little farther and you're going to get to the Owner brand and you're going to find the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. With and without 10-0, 9-0, 10-0, 12-0. Now, a Mag Draft Freestyle, we rig with an 8-0 and a 7-0. So picture the size of the swim bait, freestyle, freeload swim bait that you're putting a 9-0, a 10-0, and a 12-0 on. And then think about that on the back of this jig. So now you're swimming a grande swim jig, i.e. swim bait. Okay?
Yeah.
So, a lot of the trailers that we have here in the shop for that, we actually use striper fishing, 8-inch swim baits that we use striper fishing.
Z-Mans.
Yeah.
7.5 inch diesel minnows.
8-inch, and bigger. So this thing's going to cover you in that range from like this 5'8" swimmer on up. You're going to have a big profile, a big wobble, a big present, and you're fishing for big fish.
Yeah, and Doug's saying about PA. I mean, we got some big fish in PA. I mean, a 4-pound largemouth will eat that thing up as quick as anything. But we got 5s and 6s and 7s and 8s and all these lakes around here, all over PA. So fish are there, and that bait is there to catch them for sure.
Yeah. Hey, Doug, I've had 2 lakes within an hour drive of here where I've had 9s, 8s. Yeah, they'll eat this jig. So don't worry about that. But, this thing is going to be in its zone in waters that are known for, like, for example, last week, day 2 at Rayburn, there was 3 11-pounders caught. Okay. A lake like Rayburn, a lake like Toledo Bend. This jig is people drooling on themselves. There's drool coming down. People in Florida that are swim jigging.
Yeah.
Hydrilla flats and swim jigging.
Shell beds.
Pockets of reed heads.
Mm-hmm.
They got bibs on, okay? Because
they're loving this.
this is what this jig's designed for. Now,
Loving it.
if you're fishing a lake that's predominantly, 4 pound, 5 pound fish, this is not your jig. Save your money, click on another selection. But if you're fishing a big fish body of water, timing is everything. Now, all the way through the spawn, and then when they get out on them summer haunts, this is a peak player.
Ledges and drops and points, ends of points, and all that stuff. Gonna be great for that.
Yeah.
What do they make it? What's the weights up to?
We carry an ounce. I think they make an ounce and a half. We do not stock the ounce and a half. If you need the ounce and a half, go elsewhere. But the ounce will cover you big time. Yeah. So there you go. Missile Monster Jig, $15.99.
Yeah. Beautiful. Great bait. I love it. I love the mop jig too.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Actually,
it's funny.
Actually, not even the same conversation.
Yeah, I know, but it's
obviously.
funny that we always thought that the mop jig was the monster of them all. Big profile.
It is. It's a big profile for
jig.
what it's used for.
Yeah.
This is a whole different. This we want you to think swim bait.
Yeah.
This we want you to think swim bait. Oversized swim jig. We don't want you to think.
I think I said.
We don't want you to think flipping jig. Okay. You may use it that way, but that's not what we're talking about here. Guys, I don't know if you watched I don't know what it's called. The MLF Invitational, Tackle Warehouse Invitational, Bass Pro Tour. I don't know. But it was last week, and they weigh 5 in. And they are required to use the Bubba scale. We're promoting the heck out of Bubba scale. We're selling the heck out of Bubba scale. They're required to use this scale. And if they don't weigh their fish and put them on Bass Track, they're up for a penalty. So I'm sure they give them each a scale to be able to make that stick. I'm sure they're not telling them they have to buy a scale. I don't know. But interesting. I watched that last week. They're all using this scale, keeping their Bass Track real accurate. Bubba scale. No more guessing. No more not. No more not.
And one thing I noticed about that scale is how fast it locks on. It locks on real quick.
It does lock on real quick.
And it was, you don't have to worry about the fish. Just it locks on. Measures like crazy number per second. Like they check it. It locks. It tests it many times per second, so it can lock on real quick.
Yeah. So that's
what else you got, George? What else you talking about with tackle?
I found that interesting that they had to use that scale, and that if they didn't, they could be penalized. I'm assuming monetarily.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or else, what are they going to do? Slap their wrist?
Take some weight away.
No, not doing that. They're not doing that.
2 ounce penalty, like
a
dead fish penalty.
They're not doing that.
No,
they're not doing that. So I have some line. I have Overwatch, Sunline braid. So this is an 8-strand braid. So for those of you who don't understand that whole concept, originally when braid was made, 4 strands, 2 and 2, were coming up and going into a braider that was weaving them into 1 strand. Okay, now we have 8-strand braids. And I think just to be different, Berkley had a 9-strand braid. Revolutionary. But what that does is with double the strands is the first thing you notice is the smoothness. You know, because you're filling in the valleys, so to speak, with more braiding. It's fascinating to watch a braider work too. I've watched them make braid on a braider, and it is freaking cool.
It's mesmerizing.
It is mesmerizing.
And I always wanted to go out. We had an invite to go out to the Power Pro factory one year, and I wanted to go so bad, and our trip fell through. But could you imagine 700 of those machines doing that all at once?
You're gonna need some hearing protection.
Yeah, I know, but that would just mesmerize the shit out of me. Be in a trance.
So, one of the things about this braid that I have some questions about, Mike and I were talking about this the other day, the quoted diameters. You know, and I think they're less than what they're quoting. I don't know if that's a legal thing or what, but it's very thin.
Feels super thin, doesn't
Now,
it?
if you look at the quoted diameters, like they're the same for Super Slick. Now, Super Slick is also an 8-strand braid, very similar technologies, but they're the same diameters. Like this is a 12 right here. Their 12 is 0.0074. That's pretty damn thin. So it's a spinning reel braid. So the Overwatch is a spinning reel braid, okay? You don't want to put, light braid on your bait caster to begin with. And you don't want to put like a light 8-strand braid on. So this is a spinning reel braid. This is a 125-yard spool. So you're going to one-shot your reel here. So make sure you have plenty of backing on so that you top out correctly. Beautiful braid. But the cool thing about this braid is it's really hard to see in the air. You'll notice this braid has like a chartreuse and there we go.
There you go.
See the chartreuse in there? And then the olive green. So this is braided in a 12-inch chartreuse piece, and then a 30-inch moss green piece. Repeating. So you can tie your leader on if you're worried about the line problem, visibility. You can tie your leader on to the moss green, and you'll have your leader, and then you'll have 30 inches of moss green. And as an angler, this is pretty cool because you really pick this line up. It's you just see those skips of chartreuse out there, and it really catches your eye. So it's a great line watcher's line. It's a super smooth, slick, small diameter. It's freaking beautiful, man. It's $22.99 for a spool. It's really nice.
How's it compared to SmackDown?
SmackDown.
Don't they have a SmackDown?
I did not look at the diameters of SmackDown.
Yeah.
So you'll have to do that comparison yourself.
Yeah.
I looked at Power Pro Super Slick.
Yeah.
To compare diameters.
Yep.
Now the other 29 brands of braid out there.
Well,
you can check that out.
Nick and I,
if that's a concern.
Nick and I, when we were at the ICAST show, we took a morning and we went live. And the first thing we went to was to this booth and checked out this line, and it just struck me on how thin it actually felt and how all the attributes to it, and for the spinning rod fishing. But it just to me it seems so thin. But and then these numbers that they put with it just didn't seem right. They don't seem like that's what they were talking about, because they made a big effort to tell us how thin the line was, and we were looking at 12, and it was like a 8-pound anything else. It just seemed really super thin. So, and I really like the idea of the chartreuse and the indicator every so many feet. So, you get that visibility aspect of it. And the castability is going to be off the charts with that 8-strand braid. Going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we're not here telling you that this is better than any other braid on the market.
No. Just giving
We're just telling you that here is an excellent quality spinning reel braid.
Yeah.
8-strand primo braid.
Yeah.
Small diameter, but yet not smaller than anybody else.
Yeah.
Just that really fine diameter. So
Yeah.
again, if you want to get on there and get your spreadsheet out and find a 10,000th of an inch disparity, that's fine. That's cool if that's important to you. But it's not important because I think diameter is overblown in a lot of respects. You know, this is a 12-pound in my hand here, which is a .0074. Now, personally, I'm a Power Pro Super Slick guy for the most part. I fish 15 because they don't make 12. They make 10, which is .006. So that's just so you don't get yourself all off on a tangent, black helicopters and whatnot. That's 1,000th of an inch. Now,
Big deal. Big
we're
deal,
gonna,
bro.
you know what we're gonna do?
That's a big deal.
You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna talk about 1,000th of an inch. That, on the average now, is 1/3 the diameter of a human hair. A human hair is 3,000ths of an inch on the average.
I remember when
So
I remember
we're
when
talking about a
Nano
third.
Phil came out with like 2-pound test.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
It was like
Stay on point. So, you know, you got super thin quality braid. It's a hell of a nice line. And it casts. I mean, when you take that spinner rod and kick it. Now, whether you go with, you know, 12 or 10, I'm going to be honest with you. I wouldn't get all worked up over that. That's 1,000th of an inch difference. You know, if it wasn't from a sales perspective, they would sell 8, 12, and 18 because 16 is .0082 and 18 is .0088. So, you know, it's great line. And when you see diameters like that, you know their ability to manufacture that line is impressive. That would be, you know, do the line tour. Go to the Power Pro plant, go to the Sunline plant, go to the Seaguar plant. I mean, the line tour, I'm telling you. Plus, you'd be in Colorado and Japan. It would be pretty cool.
Yeah. I want to go back to Japan.
$22.99 a spool, 125 yards. You know, it's thin. So I'm going to tell you right now, when you filling up your your spinning reel with backing, like here's a 3,000 Daiwa ballistic. Okay. If I'm going to put a whole spool of 12-pound Overwatch on here, I don't know if we're going to be able to see this real good, but I'm literally filling this spool with backing over at least 3/4 of the way. At least 3/4 of the spool is going to be backing. That's what thin line is with a 125-yard spool.
Yeah.
And then I got a tip for you guys. Okay. So when you fill a spinning reel, go back and look at our archives. We've done amazing videos on hand winding spinning. But on braid on a spinning reel, we want it on very tight. Okay? So what I do when I'm I hand wind a lot of my spools just because to bring them into work, or I even have a line winder in my garage to take the spool off a bunch of reels. I'm not doing it. I take a towel. So I'm gonna hold my rod like this and crank down here. I'm gonna be up by the big stripper guide. I lay a towel right here, and I put the braid in there, kind of like in an S pattern, and then I can really magnify my tension. And then as I'm winding, I can adjust that. I want it tight on the spool that I can't dig my thumbnail down in, because I'm gonna get a whole entire season or maybe 2 seasons worth of use out of that spool of line. I'm at least getting 1 year out of it,
Oh yeah,
unless I have a catastrophe,
for sure.
which does happen.
Mm-hmm.
I had a catastrophe last Sunday.
Yeah, you did. It's
Um,
pretty ugly.
and I'll tell you what,
Wasn't my fault.
sidebar,
Wasn't my fault.
sidebar,
Don't go there.
sidebar. I was on the back deck of a 20-foot boat. Back deck, you could have company over, a picnic, lunch, watch Sports Center on a 52-inch flat screen, plenty of room. Somehow, 20 feet away on the other end of the boat, my personal space was invaded on a backcast by
Wasn't my fault.
another fishing rod that was attempting to get into a spot that I was attempting to get to 20 feet away. This is after running the trolling motor all day long. And,
You snooze, you lose.
basically, yeah, my shit blew up. Like there was an eagle actually circling overhead as a potential nesting site.
And I didn't have any problem, Nick.
I got a question though. So a 20-foot boat, I'm assuming the Skeeter.
Nope, we were in a jet boat.
Okay.
Our jet boat's 20 feet long.
But okay, so how did this even happen? Because you're all the way in the front. What'd you do? Go back and
No, I was committed to a cast, So
No,
yes, I
this
was.
is all bullshit.
I was in the water, man. I was on my spot, when I was soaking.
He was fishing.
I was soaking a
70 yards behind the boat,
I was,
behind me.
I was soaking a jerk bait
Okay.
doing the dead stick, and I was, I was in the zone, really working it around this rock, in this front of the face of this thing. And then out of nowhere, some crazy man just comes back and just woof hits my line. And let me tell you something, what it did to that reel.
Now, fortunately,
He had
like
to get scissors out.
fortunately, like Foghorn Leghorn, I keeps a spare for such an occasion.
Yeah.
My good friends at High Seas bestow upon me a bulk spool of 10-pound fluorocarbon that I love for my jerkbait and my cold water cranking. And it's like NASCAR out there. I mean, if I had tools, I couldn't have been any faster.
Mhm.
Literally 3 minutes later, that reel was stripped down and re-spooled, rigged, and back in the water. So that's all right. Sam and Sam has a question on backing, the size of the backing, so on and so forth, the type of the backing. So let me put it to you in like this. It's really irrelevant. I feel as though you should use a mono because it's inexpensive and it's never going to see the light of day. But if you have a spool full of fluorocarbon and you're going to put braid on top of it or another fluorocarbon fill and you filled it just strip it back. But if you have an empty reel that you're filling up, put some mono on there. As far as pound test, it's not that critical. Like, obviously, the heavier line's going to fill the reel quicker. So, I mean, I'm usually backing a freshwater bass reel with 12 to 15 pound mono, simply because it's thick enough to fill the reel up quickly. It's not too thick for me to tie a nice small knot. I don't like a big bump on the spool. So great question, but don't get too bogged down. Actually, Sunline sells a bulk spool of backing at a very reasonable price if you don't have anything to back with. If you don't have any like partial spools, which I find very hard to believe.
I think that's 12 or 15 pound, isn't it?
It's actually 16, but it's thin.
Yeah.
Now, LP Bass has a great question about flipping the braid down at the end of the year. And that's a great question, LP, and it works, but it don't work for me, bro. Life's too short for me to walk 150 yards of line off and wind it back in. I can't carry my rod, my reel, walk the line off, carry my beer with me, and do all that stuff at once. So I'm just
you could definitely do it, and it definitely works.
I'm ripping.
When you flip it, it definitely works. Now
also, LP, it's important to realize that I have some really good friends in the industry. I get my line at a great price, like free.
Yeah, George.
I still don't change it regularly.
George isn't going to walk his line off, but a lot of guys do, and it's fine. I just don't know. We've been talking. One of our arguments in here is how long braid actually lasts. Absolutely, there is a time frame on your spool. And what happens and what I'm noticing, especially with these 8 braids and higher, is they start from casting so much, they start to get limper and limper and limper.
They loosen up. The braiding loosens up.
Yeah, and the limper the line. That's why they changed formulas on a lot of these lines over the years. Because when they first came out with eight stranded braided line, they were too limp. They created a lot of wind knots. They created a lot of problems. And what I'm noticing with my older spools, because I run them out, man. George and I we run them out year and a half until we have to refill. Number one, we're busy and we just don't have a lot of time on the braided. We have more rods with fluorocarbon and mono that we have to change out all the time. And the braid, we just let ride. But it seems to not cast as far from being fresh to some time on it. It's a lot of time on it, a lot of cast on it. And I think it's because it does.
Well, the other
up.
thing you're going to notice is that braiding is going to be looser. It's going to actually loosen up, and you're going to get some on the fine diameter lines. You're going to get some issues around your knot to your leader, not breakage, but you're going to get it's almost like the knot and the line kind of wrap around each other. For lack of a better technical term, they tie a little half hitch on themselves. And you'll notice if you strip back your braid 3-4 feet, it has a fresher feel to it. And then, you just keep doing that until it gets too low. But there's a lot to be said about a fresh, full spool of line as far as eliminating things that you can't really think of that are annoying. So, you're probably going to change that braid once per season. When you're coming into your new season, you're going to freshen it up, and you're probably going to unless you have a catastrophe, somebody jumping in your poaching on your spot, interfering with you, That
was an awesome backlash show, man.
That was great.
That was one of the better ones I've seen.
I just sat down, took scissors, and started cutting, but it wasn't bad.
He didn't even get pissed, Nick. He wasn't even pissed. He was like, "Oh shit, there it went."
Well, I got a question with that.
Well, I was catching so many fish at the time, Nick. I needed a break.
George, did you not get pissed because you just said, "You know what? It's what I expect," or were you just past that point?
Well,
it's funny. I fished out of the back of the boat all morning long, and I didn't hit his line.
What happened was, Nick, is I was on a little tear. Mike had me in the hole pretty good. It was a, early and often thing with Mike. So I was coming back all day. I was on a comeback trail, and I got on a little tear there, and I kind of brought the score up to where it needed to be.
Yeah, don't even go there.
Even things up. I got within striking distance. I was feeling good.
There's no sabotaging going on.
So it really wasn't a problem. I mean, I didn't mind retying and respooling. My spool kind of needed to be redone anyways. So, I looked at it as a favor, and, then I continued on with your catch ratio prowess with the jerkbait. You know what I'm saying? And just kept reeling them in. So it was a great day.
Yeah.
But, I do digress. So, guys, I don't want to make this sound like a missile commercial, but I like to theme things up every week. And, we love missile baits.
Love those guys.
Their quality is outstanding. The colors are trend setting. The baits are just straight up killer baits. And we're going to talk about a few things that we may have actually talked about before, but I don't think people are given the right amount of love to. And this is what we use is a jig trailer and a trailer on the chatterbait. Swim jig, flipping jig, chatterbait, mini max chatterbait. It's called the Chunky D. This is the Chunky D. So you got a lot going on here. You got the flappers. So you're going to get that flap, right? Really desirable on a swim jig in the spring. Really desirable on a chatterbait in the spring. Quite a lot. I mean, you have to experiment with that. The trailer is important. Nice, solid body, firm, going to hold up well. And, of course, the colors. You know, this is the Bruiser Flash, which is a missile bait standard, right? Chunky D, $5.69 a pack. You're getting 6 baits in a clamshell. So when they're in your boat, there's no bent tails. Everything's pristine, right? The clamshell, you just stick it right down in there. Everything's good. Chunky D. Great trailer. You could finesse flip it. Carolina rig it for smallmouth. It's a, Carolina rigging smallies with a little crawl bait like that is money up north. Great bait, Chunky D. Another bait that's interesting from Missile. Now, they don't actually make this bait, but they endorse it and they distribute it. This is a little company down in Virginia. And it's called the Drop Zone Tackle. It's a rattling drop shot weight. Pineapple clip, swivel clip. That's a 1/4 ounce. So size-wise, it's really no different. It's got a glass rattle in it. And it's become a little bit of a regional deal. It's a new element to your, and a lot of people are going to say, well, I don't want sinker bites, but what's happening is that sound's an attraction, and then the bait's in the vicinity. So picture your little rattle bait down here, and picture your little Yamamoto shad-shaped worm up here, and everything's kind of shaking and rattling and swimming, and it's just another aspect, sight, scent, sound. It's another aspect that you can add to a drop shot presentation.
George, I really like that. What sizes do they come in?
So, hopefully I'm smart enough to write this down. I was 3/16 to a half.
Nice.
So you guys going up north and getting on the St. Lawrence River or Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, that 3/8 and half is going to be your sweet spot. The rest of you guys fishing around, shallow to mid depth, the 3/16 and a 1/4 is going to be where you live. Great, nice quality, good quality clip. It's not a real line breaking clip. Reasonably priced. The 1/4 ounce is a 5-pack, and we are looking at $5.99. So for a specialty weight, you're not. It's something nice, something different, and it's been a hot little item for us here at the shop because we're kind of close enough to that center where it's really popular. It's called the Drop Zone Tackle, and Missile Baits is distributing them. So check that out. And then also on our Missile Baits parade, they partnered up with Hog Farmer to bring the Spunk Shad. Now, arguably, one of the first companies other than Hog Farmer to do the little pointy tail Spunk Shad trailer. Now you got the Freeloader, which is on every other blog page, talking about, Dust Cannell and Jacob Wheeler, the Freeloader, the Z-Man has one. I mean, they all got one.
Spike, I think they call her.
The
Spikes.
Chatter Spike. So here's the kind of, they were kind of out front on this, and obviously The 4.5 inch, okay, is going to be your bread and butter for your chatterbait, your spinner bait, your swim jig. 4.5 inch. The new 3.5 inch, to give you a size comparison. Let's look at them tail by tail. 3.5 inch is going to fit that Mini Max. You know, that Mini Max, that little mini swim jig, that Ike's Mini Swim. Or if you're a forward-facing Demiki rig guy,
That's going to be sweet for that.
right?
Going to be sweet. That's a
Gives
big
you-
one too.
Gives you 2 size options in that ring.
That's what's
Colors.
Nice. Gives you that smaller size. It's
There's some
nice.
new colors in 4.5. The Super Bug. I mean, come on.
Super bug. We
I mean,
talked
come
about
on. We
that.
got
We
the
talked
black-
about that before.
We got the black and blue June Bug kind of looking back. I'd say it's somewhere in the June Bug and black and blue realm with the green pumpkin belly. I mean, come on.
Just saying.
Just get it right.
I'm just saying. If you throw out in a D-bond, something might happen.
D-bombs, great flipping bait, awesome colors, some new colors. This is their ultimate crawl. Check them out, man. We carry a massive selection of missile, and we are big time missile fans. We love missile baits, and we wanted to give them some love tonight.
And rightfully so. George, that bait that you have in your hand right now, that's the D-bomb.
The D-bomb,
And then you also had the Chunky D.
Chunky D.
So they both have different tails. You know, when do you prefer one over the other?
Well, the D-bomb is going to be like my primary flipping bait. Okay, you get a subtle waving of the tail on the drop, flapping, waving, if you will. It's profile. The Chunky D is going to be my action. That's going to be that's got the flanges on it that causes the kick. That's my trailer. Now, yes, I could trail everything with a D-bomb that I'm going to trail with a Chunky D, but I like that kick. You know, now you can flip the Chunky D as a finesse flip, or Carolina rig it, which is a dynamite up north Smalley presentation. Just absolutely perfect size for Carolina rigging for Great Lakes, northern Smalleys. But to me, it's a trailer. It's a swim jig trailer. It's a chatterbait trailer. It's a Mini Max chatterbait trailer. It's a flipping jig trailer. And then I also have it in my box when I go up north, I can drag it. So it's, you know, the D-bomb and the baby D-bomb are my primary flipping baits. This is more a trailer bait. That's how I look at it. Yes, you can intertwine them, but that's kind of where I go with it. The D-bomb, Mike's a big D-bomb flipping guy. Really, really good flipping bait.
Love that D-bomb.
We call it a creature bait,
Yeah.
creature style bait.
That's what box mine are in. A creature box.
Yeah. I usually carry the bruiser, and of course the green pumpkin, and of course the
Super bug.
super bug,
Right on.
and put a little spike it on there every now and again.
Get the net, Bobby.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, we had a little missile. We had a little missile discussion tonight, which I thought was fun. We talked about, you know, some Sunline Overwatch. Great option for your spinning reel spooling. Or you BFS guys out there. You know, the BFS is the spinning reel of the bait casting world. We also didn't really talk about it, but you know the shad shape worm from Yamamoto. Awesome drop shot worm. There's one of their new colors called Morning Dawn. I don't think they invented that color, though.
No.
I'm thinking somebody by the name of Robo Worm invented that. But look at that.
Aaron
look at,
Martin's had something to do with that one.
Look at that sexy little machine right there, man. Drop shot that all day long. Put that on a Ned head. Oh, my. Bunch of colors. Check them out. Yamamoto shad shape worm. pile of colors in stock. And that, as they say, gentlemen, is that on
Nick,
Tackle Talk.
yeah, you were saying about those tails, Nick. You know, those rage style tails on all those baits. You know, just gives you that extra kick if you want a lot more action. You know, a lot more. Because I also fished the rage creature bait called was that the bug, right?
It's the
Rage
rage
bug.
structure bug.
Structure bug, and that's got the, you know, that all the appendages have that little kicker on it.
Well, the structure bug, you know, first came out as Denny Brower's structure bug. And, you know, it was primarily a flipping bait.
Yeah,
But it turns out it's a phenomenal trailer on a swim jig,
yeah,
as well as a Carolina rig bait. And of course, it's a freaking awesome flipping bait.
yeah. But that, you know, that was what I was getting at. You know, it for flipping, you get that real nice. You know, sometimes, like, especially when the water warms up, you get that nice action out of it.
Kicks.
You know, whereas in the colder water or pressured fish, you know, like we have a couple lakes around here that are pressured like hell. I feel a D-bomb with a little slower kick, you know, isn't quite as aggressive, and it seems we get a little bit more bites on it. But the other thing is when when you throw that swim jig, you can, you know, that those tails, you can bust off the side things on it, you know, and get that real nice kick. I've had some really good days on swim jigs with that rage style tail, you know, with that kicker tail, and all these baits that have that, you can get different lengths. Like Strike King makes a chunk, which really is a great trailer for a swim jig, but a smaller swim jig, you know, where if you want something a little bit bigger, you could take a, you know, one of those craws,
Chunky D.
the Chunky D, and I for some reason I pull the side things off. I don't know. It's just me. I don't like the appendages on the side. I pull those off, and then you still got that really nice kick but it gives you that little extra length.
So with those, like the Chunky D style for you guys, are you using that on a chatterbait or swim jig horizontally or vertically?
Yeah, I fish on mine. What's that? Horizontal.
Horizontal.
Yeah.
Primarily, too, yeah.
Yeah. Now, we had a great conversation when the Menace Grub came out on the market with Kevin Van Dam at ICAST one year. And he was like talking about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, man." He said a lot of guys don't know this, but put it straight up and down. This was years ago. Put it straight up and down, and you get the kick this way. And he says gives a totally different shatty kind of look.
Bait fish tail
Oh.
profile.
Well, that's why I asked, because that's the way I like to do it.
Yeah.
And I think I heard it from you guys when you mentioned that one time.
Yeah.
And I tried it with the Menace Grub.
Yeah.
And it worked really good.
I like it with the Menace Grub.
Yeah.
So I mean,
the Chunky D would do well with that too.
There's nothing wrong with rigging all that stuff, both horizontal and vertical, for different colors and different profiles and different size jigs. So that's you know, you can use all those types of trailers depending on what size bait fish that you want to do, especially when just me talking about swim jig fishing.
Well, you know, we are big fans of the swim jig. You know, we started out with the 10-aught hook monster swim jig, which we're probably not going to, you know, put a Chunky D on. But
Can you imagine that?
might put a whole pack of Chunky D's
do they
on
still
there.
make that lobster? They got rid of that, didn't
It's
they?
not big enough.
Isn't that lobster big
It's
enough?
not big enough. But
I thought that would be a great trailer too. That's pretty big.
it is pretty big, but it's just not big. It's just not big enough. But I do want to tell you something that I learned back in the day, and I've talked about it on this show before. And since we're talking about trailers and the kick and vertical versus horizontal, I'm going to go back a little bit here
Uh-oh.
to
Going into the archives.
Bill Lowen.
Ah,
Taught me this. And it is to this day one of my most favorite warm weather swim jig trailers. And it is a Zoom horny toad. And I'm going to flat out tell you, when you get into that warmer weather and those fish are spawning, post spawning in the grass and feeding well, Man, that big old bulky profile when they're eating like bluegills and perch. There's a time of the year on the tidal water where they're eating little baby catfish. You need a bulky look. That damn horny toad is awesome. Steven Becker, also known as Skeeter Steve, probably mostly known as Skeeter Steve, says horny toad worked at Champlain. Back in the day on Champlain, I mean, we would take like a dozen bags of white horny toads and 24 white swim jigs for like a Toyota Series tournament because of the pike. And oh my God, did you catch fish on that thing? So, when you get into that warmer months, don't be afraid to size that trailer up on that. And guys, since we're kind of rambling here, not quite incoherently, because we're on one here. We're on one here. There's a time in the spring, and sometimes even in the post spawn, there's a time when the trailer is more important than what the trailer is on. And what I mean by that is, and I really see this a lot on a chatterbait, but I also see it on a swim jig. And one of the biggest bags I ever weighed in on a swim jig, I weighed in because two things happened that day. One was I was getting a lot of like short strikes or missed bites, a lot. Frustrating, tearing claws off my trailer. And for some reason, I had like a moment of clarity. This is before I really knew this. And I put a swim bait trailer on. I put a skinny dipper on. I bit a little bit off a skinny dipper and put a skinny dipper on a half-ounce swim jig. And proceeded to just absolutely light them up. And what I learned was a little bit, I was obviously hung up on that for a while, but what I learned was with the chatterbait particularly, a lot of times that I think of the chatterbait and the swim jig as a carrier for the trailer. And so, yes, predominantly in the spring, we're fishing a kicker, a crawl, or put it this way, right? A kicker, a lot. That's kind of go-to. But I will argue that you need to experiment with the swim bait also. So if you're a big swim jig guy and a big chatterbait guy, and most of us are, particularly with the chatterbait, most assuredly do not consider your homework done until you've gotten on that trailer. Now, I would like to take it a step farther, gentlemen. When Missile started selling the spunk shad, being a student of the sport, I'm like, what? I ain't buying this. I got no flip, no flap, no swim, no body roll. Well, actually, I do. And actually, the hunting action of my chatterbait has been increased. So now, to really complicate my life, I'm experimenting with that in addition to the swim bait and the crawl style. I'm actually going to go into pretty good depth on this on my seminar Saturday because the swim jig and the smallmouth, turns out, were made for each other, like peas and carrots. So I'm going to be talking about that. But that I don't want to go down this path too much farther because I don't have a lot of experience with the spunk shad style, pointy shad style trailer. I do have some experience with it, and I did have one day when it was pretty key, and I was actually using the Z-Man version of it, which is called the Chatter spike. So, yeah, that's my little tangent there, boys.
Great tangent.
I don't know. I
Good
just
stuff,
kind of,
George.
I was feeling it.
Hey, George, what's up with this reel right here? What's this all about here?
Ballistic. I had this out for the, I had this out because I needed a spinning reel for the Overwatch. This is the Daiwa Ballistic MQ. MQ stands for Monaco Body. So what's cool about this reel is this body is Zion, which is a material that's like light as carbon, but stiff like aluminum. Has very little flex. And this side plate here, which is round side plate that you see here, right here, this is the access to the body, to the gearing. This doesn't have a traditional screw-off side plate. This has a unthread the whole side of the reel, kind of rigid boss kind of in. And you know, they're all about this now in their reels. It allows them to offset the gearing a little bit, so their reels are almost a little asymmetrical. It maintains the rigidity. It maintains the water resistance. Of course, the Zion material is super light. The handle feel is super smooth. This is the Ballistic, one of the higher end, $229.99, 3,000 size. 2,500 to 3,000 is where you bass people are going to live. You're looking at like corrosion resistant bearings. So your main handle bearing, your line roller bearing are corrosion resistant. If you're a brackish water fisherman, very much worth that bump over to Tula.
Yeah.
199 to 229. This bearing and this bearing are the two most prone bearings to rust in saltwater environment. These will not rust. So it's a $30 insurance policy.
To have mag seal?
No mag oil. I don't think, you know what? I shouldn't say that. It may have mag oil on the spool shaft.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think so the spool shaft goes down through the bearing in the top of the body, and that's a mag oil seal. So it's
Badass.
It's a magnetic oil that grips around the spool shaft and prevents water. I mean, the water would literally have to go like under the rotor, on top of the body, and then somehow get forced down in there. So you got a friction-free seal there with the mag seal. Yeah, it's a pretty badass reel.
Yeah.
So glad you asked about it.
Yeah. Pretty cool reel. I like it.
Very nice, George. Hey, I just wanted to hit on something real quick. So, you know, not to go back into the subject too much, but you were talking about all the trailers, right? And one thing that I always pride, like our show and even everything about this place, is techniques. And when you really think about it, you look at chatterbait, swim baits, jigging, you can really hone each technique into an all year thing. And everything you just mentioned is about doing that. And guys that are really good with the chatterbait, swim bait, they've done that. And I think that's pretty cool.
We've said that for years. I mean, a crankbait fisherman who's a crankbait fisherman gets into it, in the multiple levels, really gets deep into it and really understands everything from the hooks, what the hooks do, and the lips, and the thickness of the body and the shape of the body and how it affects this and the colors. And, same with, a worm fisherman has his, that's really a worm guy. And, now when you're talking about, jigs, basically the swim jig, the chatterbait, and the regular bottom bouncing jig, those, you can get as specific as you want, and you can get so deep into it that, I mean, jig guys are crazy, just like any kind
And
of guy.
crankbaiters, remember,
You better watch yourself.
you guys were talking about David Fritz that time. He's looking at all the same crankbaits and going, go one,
Yeah.
go one. Like he knew.
No, exactly. And I know guys with the jig guys who, have to have 25 strands of black with 3 or 4 strands of blue, and half of those black ones got to be round rubber. I mean, these guys get. I mean, people come into our wall of skirt material over there, and they just, they're picking these colors, and they're like, and they're just kind of looking at it, and they're doing all this stuff to make a jig that meets their criteria. Honestly, it's unbelievable.
So the jig's a great topic because the jig can be 25 different things. And there's a time and a season for each jig style. Like here's the Buckeye mop jig. Okay. Now this has what's called round rubber. So this big, like we don't trim this jig. You want a big, bulky. If you look at this jig up close, this round rubber is longer than the silicone that's on the inside of it, which by the way is just there for color. So round rubber is real buoyant, real drapey. Okay. So you got this thing hits the bottom, it's like
A lot of stuff going on there.
like an octopus spider just weaving its web down there. And so it's a big profile. You're going to have a big trailer on there. And the word is big. Okay. You got a rattle. You got the rattle collar on the skirt with two rattles. You can pop them out. You can leave them in. You got a nice firm hook. You can trim the weed guard a little bit. So to a jig guy, it's all about the style of the skirt, the size of the jig, the season, and then the trailer, is a major player.
Endless.
Chunk, crawl, threading the chunk up on the body for a compact presentation, punching the chunk through the nose for a big presentation.
Pork now.
Double twin tail. There's just a lot that goes on in a trailer. There's a lot that goes on in a jig. And to get to your point, Nick, you can become a primarily one bait technician. There's a young man starting to fish the Elite Series this year from Maine. And he is a jig fisherman. He fishes a brown rubber jig, green pumpkin with brown with a little green pumpkin, live rubber, green fish tackle, jig, 80 to 90% of his time. When he pre-fishes, here's how dialed in he is to jig fishing. And this will kind of bring home what Nick's talking about. When he pre-fishes, he very rarely casts. He spends the majority of his day scanning. And he's not looking to catch fish. He's looking to find areas to throw his jig at. He wants 50 rock piles or 50 brush piles or 50 pieces of wood or 10 grass lines or whatever, but he wants that. And he's going to go fishing with a jig. He's not going to pull up in crank. He's not going to pull up in rattle trap. He's not going to pull up in chatterbait. He's going to pull up in jig. So that is this young man from Maine is the embodiment of what we're talking about. He has built his life around a jig. Okay. Chatterbait guys. Stephen Browning comes to mind.
Be height.
Yeah, no doubt. Be height. Todd Auten. Chatterbait technicians that have they have changed their trajectory of their fishing career around that bait. Trailers, retrieves,
Colors.
All that. For
late
example,
configurations.
do you wind it? Do you yo-yo it? Do you do a modified? You know, do you go heavier? Do you go bigger? Do you go big blade? Do you go, I'll bet you the average guy who's a chatterbait fisherman has 3/8 ounce chatterbaits in his box. Probably doesn't have mini maxes. Probably doesn't have 3/4 ounce. Probably doesn't have big blades. But it's all about that when you're a technician, when you're a specialist in that,
Stealth blade.
like
There's time for that.
a chatterbait guy's going to throw a chatterbait
He's gonna throw it.
90% of the time.
Yeah.
And he's going to catch his fish.
Yeah.
So, kind of along what cameraman Nick was saying about that whole specialty thing, take a swim jig guy. You can swim a jig. You can, I love a hybrid retrieve. I love to swim that jig, pop it through a clump of grass and let it fall, and then drag it along the bottom a little bit until I hit another clump of grass, pop it through that, and then swim it a little bit. And I think it's extremely effective. Now, obviously, when they're up shallow, spawn, bluegill around a bluegill spawn after they're done spawning, obviously you want it high in the water column. You want to see it. You're getting that reaction strike. But you know what? You get a cold front on a pre-spawn or an early spawn season, you might need to finesse them a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this. So obviously you guys can catch fish every time you go out. But when you were at the height of the most fishing you were doing, were you a technician of a certain type of fishing, or were you an all around? What fit you at that moment?
Yeah, I really didn't have a specialty. I never had one thing that I considered myself an absolute technician on. I really junk fished. That's how I caught fish, is junk fishing, just going by. I don't know who coined the phrase fishing the gut, but way back before that was really
Randy Bucket.
Is he the one that did it?
I don't know, but it sounds good because he's in the news right now.
So whoever kind of
Rick Clun
said that just kind of summed up how I fish. So I really wasn't that guy. However, I would definitely get tuned in to what was going on. Like I remember a trip one time where we were fishing and we were catching them on something, and I was like, man, this profile is not right. I need to go to another profile, and I need to add a little bit of chartreuse. And I remember taking a Spike-It pen when they first came out, and I remember painting the little legs, on the bait and flipping out there and catching a 5-pounder. I mean, like literally flipping out there and catching a 5-pounder. It was like you just kind of get into the zone.
That's just weird.
It is. It's weird as hell. And George was with me, and my dad. The funny thing was, my dad was with me. He's like, "What's that shit all about?" And my thought was like, "Well, that was pretty
That
cool."
thing was a beast. It was a lot more than 5 pounds.
Well, whatever. But when we were fishing a lot, it's just like with these guys, and that's a good observation about the professional angler. And they get all this help and they get all this stuff and they do all,
They're dialed in.
They're dialed in, man. When you're fishing a lot, and I mean a lot by, you're fishing every week, couple days a week, and getting on the road and then doing 6, 7, 8 days in a row fishing, and then on the way home, stopping and doing another 5 days, and then going home, taking a couple days off, and then fishing around the house to try to work on a new technique. You start to dial into the fish. You start to dial into small subtleties that you can break a lake down very, very quickly. And I just remember, back in the day when we were fishing real hard, especially George, when he was, traveling a lot, doing a lot of tournament fishing, you would just get dialed in because you fished all the friggin' time. Then I had kids, and that was the end of that shit.
That was the end of that. Well, we still fish a lot, and we're still dialed in. But
you do, but nothing like at that level. Those guys are just.
We still fish a lot. We're still dialed in. We're just fishing a lot different now.
Yeah.
More variety, not as specialized. For example, there was probably a 10 to 15 year period, probably closer to 15-year period, where the bulk of the fish that I weighed in a tournament came on a black jig that had blue metal flake in the skirt. and a black trailer
Yeah.
that had blue metal flake or a sapphire blue trailer. I mean, like literally, like if you come into my garage where I keep my boats and you look at my workbench where I work on my tackle, there is bags. And when I say bags, there is bags of the jig head that I used to use because I made all my own jigs. I put my skirts on. And I mean, it was like when you're a jig specialist,
Yeah.
you need them by the hundreds.
I would say
okay?
that he was more dialed in. He had more of a specialty with jigs. You know, he was like, I mean, no, didn't matter where we were. You know, he was flipping a jig or throwing a jig for sure. He was more of a jig guy and really understood jig fishing and knew the tweaks that he liked to tweak it to for his confidence and
You
stuff.
just get dialed in.
And you do get dialed in, but he was a guy who had quarters, 3/8, half, 3/4, you know, 1 ounce,
Couple ones
you know, not many, but
for up north.
he had all the jigs, all different sizes, but his box wasn't like painted colors. You know, it wasn't a rainbow. It was.
So George, were you having like 4 or 5 rods with jigs?
At
all
least
on the
3.
deck? Okay.
Yeah, at least 3.
would. Yeah. And
Especially if it was a tidal water tournament, because you have different intensities of the tide and different, like a point, like a dock on a point that had 6 foot of water on it. You know, if you caught it right when the tide started moving, you were fishing a 1/2 ounce jig. But if you were like 15 minutes off on your timing, you better have a 3/4 ounce jig. You know, if it was tournament day and you misread your clock right, or the tide ran different than you thought and it was hauling ass when you got there, you better have that 3/4 ounce jig laying there, because that's what it took to get down. So I usually would rig a quarter, a 3/8 and a half, and I lived on a 3/8 and a half.
yeah, we used to float. He used to talk. We used to float a jig into a tree. You know, try to with the current floated in,
Trout fish it.
trout fish it into the tree. You know, and get it was just a different presentation. And when a lot of guys were tossing it right in and complete, vertical, we were floating it in like trout fishing with a real light jig and
then up
and
north,
a trailer, and
up north in the summer, post spawn summer patterns up north, Champlain, Cayuga. That was all about a heavy jig, 3/4 and 1 ounce, thumping and bumping.
Remember the old slow fall jig, Nick?
No.
They made a jig. It was like all made just for a super slow fall, like a parachute. Like,
I didn't like it.
no, we didn't like it, but it was that's an idea. That's a need, a necessary need that was trying to be filled for something like that people were trying to do in different presentation with a jig. So all these different things came out and all these different things. But a jig guy, man, you'll notice a jig guy buys a jig, tears the skirt off, and puts their own skirt on it. And it's,
I would say, less frequently today because of the beautiful jigs.
yeah, I know. You're right, but there's still guys that are dialed in that like 8 strands of green pumpkin with black flake, and then they like the brown green pumpkin, 6 strands of brown green pumpkin, and then 4 strands of watermelon with black flake, and then like 2 strands of baby bass.
Is that the recipe?
I don't know. I'm just saying. There's guys that are like that. Trust me, dude. Like I know a lot of times if I'm fishing a bait and like especially with chartreuse and white and there's too much chartreuse, man, I can start getting my scissors out, start snipping.
Absolutely.
Snipping the chartreuse out because it's just too much chartreuse, Where George, he had a box in his boat. It was a really cool box with a double-sided box.
Still do.
And it has, skirt material in it and a skirt making tool. And I've done it, wanted a little bit of orange, but I didn't want a lot of orange. So I'd put 2 or 3 strands of orange in a green pumpkin skirt, now there was a question on here, Nick, about jig trailers. Do you try to match the color of the skirt to the jig trailer or the jig trailer to the skirt or the bait? There again, now there's so many options in trailers that you can, change your colors by your trailer. You can, like that little shot of chartreuse that some guys like to put 2 strands of chartreuse or 3 strands, or they may have some kind of concoction of whatever. You could do that with a trailer. You could put a chartreuse and green pumpkin chartreuse trailer on. You could put a green pumpkin trailer with a chartreuse tails. You can dip now. You can spike, you can do all this stuff to come up with the colors. But there's a lot of times where I think one of George's favorite ones was a black and blue jig with a green pumpkin trailer. That's one of his favorite combinations that he throws around a lot. I never really did good on that, and I didn't really had confidence in it, but that was one of his confidence colors. Another one of his confidence colors was a black and blue, like everything's black and blue, black with blue metal flake skirt with a sapphire blue trailer, like a bright blue trailer. So that's totally contrasting. It's not the same color. It's not a black and blue trailer. It's a bright blue trailer on that bait. And that was that's still one of his favorite combinations for tidal water fishing.
George, he's giving up all your
I
juice.
heard that.
Yeah.
Well, the black and blue, now my black and blue that I like to fish has no strands of blue.
No, it's flake.
It's black with blue flake
Right.
in the skirt, and either a black blue flake trailer, a green pumpkin trailer, or a sapphire blue trailer.
Yeah.
Now, do I carry other colors? Absolutely.
Yeah, there's just times, there's times where you just get that wild hair, like you think that something is you're just not dialed in, and you can, while you're out in the water, man, you can do a lot of things, especially with having spike it pens and dip with you, and then having that skirt box that has the skirt materials inside there and a tool and a couple of rings.
Which I don't use a lot, but I fished a tournament on Potomac one time where I got my jig bite changed up on me.
Yeah.
And I had to tie my skirts on the fly.
Yeah.
But I will say this, my primary colors are going to be the two that we discussed, and then some sort of a green pumpkin jig. And if you look in my jig box, there's always a half a dozen white jigs in there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, man, most of the time you swim a white jig, but every once in a while, flipping a white jig is insane. Not often, but once in a while, especially when there's a lot of shad around the fall of the year. So I always like to keep a few of those around.
Yeah. So
baby white perch.
Yeah.
Post spawn tidal water fisheries and baby white perch go together like cheese and crackers.
Biscuits and gravy.
Yeah, kind of like that.
What does it go like, Nick? What does it go together like?
I like your biscuits and gravy. I can do that.
Okay.
Is that right? You're a biscuits and gravy guy.
Yeah, cream chip beef, all that good stuff.
All right. Well, I don't know how we ended up on a jig show, but I'll tell you what, I love it. I love the fact that we kind of had a couple questions from the audience. Nick had a little comment, and we just kind of like steered. And that's the beauty of, all the years of doing Tackle Shop Live. We've kind of got to the point where, I got a whole page
freestyle.
here.
It's called freestyling.
I got a whole page here of we're probably not going to get to.
Freestyling, baby.
And it's good stuff. I mean, between the jig flipping, the jig swimming, and the jig chatterbait style, I mean, it's a multi-day conversation.
You can go on.
We can have like a round
rattle
table,
on forever.
Man.
Rattle on forever.
Not to mention size of jig. It's a good thing. I like where you went with that, Nick. But guys, it's tournament season. And we have
loving it.
Some tournament talk.
Oh,
okay.
Hey, Mike, you're 3 for 3 tonight. That's pretty good.
Pretty good. I didn't foul up yet.
Yeah, I mean,
getting good at this.
Yeah, just imagine if you labeled your buttons up and put the sounds that I wanted. Be incredible. But yeah, it's tournament season. We're rolling now, and we have got some interesting tournament talk. Now, there's a few things that happened last week, guys, after our show. With our show being on Thursday, we're kind of on day one of a fresh tournament. And there's not a lot of talk going on day one. So you got to interpret what you're seeing. But by the time we roll around to the next week, these boys done spilled the beans. They win that tournament, they get that $80,000, $100,000 check, and their mouth runs like a duck's ass, man, and they just give it all up. And I found a couple things interesting, a couple notes I made watching the Rayburn MLF Invitational last week. Couple random notes. First of all, these guys are freaking good with their electronics. Second of all, on day 2 of that tournament last week, 3-day tournament, there was 3 11-plus pound largemouth caught on day 2.
Man.
Okay. Marshall Hughes, who was a local, Rayburn local, he took the lead on day 2 last week with a 5-fish limit that weighed 38.7.
Damn.
I mean, forget the dirty 30. He was almost up to the dirty 40.
Wasn't he the guy who was throwing that mop jig?
He was throwing a mop jig and a scope stick on forward-facing sonar.
What was he doing with that mop jig? Was he just throwing it out there and letting it fall? Were they falling to the bottom and eating it?
They were almost all his fish came off the bottom. If he saw them real high in the water column, he threw the scope stick. His fish were feeding heavily, but they were scattered. They were in an area, but they weren't grouped up. If he saw one down near the bottom, he threw the mop jig. If he saw it up higher, he threw the scope stick. If he got it around them, they ate it. It wasn't like they were there to eat. It's like they just rolled up to the Tuesday night all-you-can-eat steak special, and it was game on. Actually, the young man that won the tournament, he finished 3rd the week before in the Bass Pro Tour on Toledo. So the kid can fish. Name's Drew Gill.
Yep. And
he's a forward-facing wizard. That's all he does. He doesn't fish any other way. And, you know, I kind of tried to glean up on him a little bit, and here's what he said. He fishes a Demiki rig a little bit, whereas most forward-facing guys fish a Demiki rig a lot. He catches the majority of his fish on a Nico rig, which actually he had basically a nose-weighted wacky worm is basically what he had. No O-ring, just a green pumpkin wacky worm with a needle, a nail weight in it. But here's what he said in an interview on Jay Kumar's Bass Blaster. 95% of the year, and this really got me. This is an awesome. Write this stuff down. 95% of the year, bass feed up, meaning they are looking up. You know, we always talk about the fall, that late summer transition to fall when the bait fish are plentiful, and we always say bass are looking up. That's what we mean by feeding up. 95% of the year, this young man says these bass are feeding up. The exception being the spawn. And then I kind of take a little bit of umbrage with his other exception. He says early fall. I mean, I'm not going to argue with Drew Gill, but I am going to argue with Drew Gill because to me, it depends on the fishery, because most shad-based fisheries, by the time you get to early fall, which I like to call September, which is the evil time, those fish are definitely looking up. They're definitely on bait. Now, there's probably places in the south and the southeast where that's not true, but I couldn't quite figure why he went there. He knows something. So I'm a big Drew Gill fan now, and I'm going to follow him closely until I learn that. Matter of fact, I'm going to effort to get him on the show so we can ask him about that.
So he caught him down on the bottom, though, this time.
He caught him up because it's pre-spawn. He did catch him on the Nico rig on the bottom,
Yeah.
but he also caught him on the Demiki rig up.
Oh, yeah.
Caught him both ways.
Both ways. Yeah.
Yep.
That was funny though, because some of those guys were saying they would only eat on the bottom.
He caught. Normally he catches them on the Nico rig, and he caught a lot of them on the Nico rig, but the Demiki rig played.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Kind of proving what he said.
Yeah. Springtime.
Um,
I know smallmouth, which, we could break this down on Saturday, but smallmouth, definitely feed down, up until the spawn. And then even after the spawn, they feed down. But then all of a sudden, the water temperature and the forage base changes. There's fry in the water now, and then the bugs start coming off. And then all of a sudden they start, you notice the intermediate stuff starts working, and all of a sudden you can start throwing a popper out there and 49, 50, 55 or 52, 53 degree water temperature, and you can start catching them on poppers because you have that insect life, you have some stuff going on, and they just make a change. You can throw a popper and nothing. All of a sudden they just make that change, and then that top water bite really comes on good. And that's the way I always associated it with, like, the forage changes, water temperature.
yeah, I mean, smallmouth definitely, and to me, as you start getting later in the summer, they're up. I mean, they're still eating crawfish, but they're feeding up.
Yeah.
You get into September, they're definitely feeding up.
Well, I don't know.
Especially if there's,
I don't know if they're feeding up or they will go up.
well, if there's bait fish present, they are feeding up.
Yeah, there's definitely times where they definitely feed up. But I don't know about that statement. I mean, he knows, like, those guys know stuff.
Oh, I agree with him 100%.
But I mean, I think that's just such a broad stroke. 95% of the time.
I will say this about smallmouth in a
95.
river.
That's a little
I agree
strong.
with him.
That's a little strong.
I agree with him. I will say this about river smallmouth. They will focus on crawfish as long as there's not a lot of bait fish around. But I will tell you this, when it's super low and super clear and super hot, and they are totally focused on crawfish. Now follow this now. Super low, water, river, fluctuates. Super clear, super hot, and they're feeding on crawfish. What would be your bet, Nick, on what the best bait is to throw at them?
Jig?
Top water.
Top water?
You can't catch them suckers on a jig or a finesse on the bottom. They are hunting crawfish. So what a smallmouth does when it gets super low, it's almost as much fun to watch as it is to actually capitalize on. You can lay back and look upriver or downriver at water willow grass beds, for example. That's a great example. And it's not every one, but if you get it in the right area, you can be looking at 30 or 40 nice grass beds. And you'll just see a push, a fish just pushing. And what that fish is doing is that fish is laying back like he's on a deer stand, and he's waiting for them crawfish to get comfortable and come out of that grass and start walking around and start pinching at the grass and eating whatever it is they're eating. And they wait for them to get a little too comfortable, and then they blast up there and grab them. These are big crawfish. These are like,
They'd be good for eating.
Eat the tail and suck the head kind of crawfish. You know what I'm saying? And the only way to catch those fish consistently is on a topwater. They react to it, but they're feeding down. So that's kind of a fun way to say something that's like goes against the grain, but it's true. But it is fun, and it is true, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's fun to watch. But that on a river like our Susquehanna, that pattern doesn't even really exist until it's super hot and late when the water gets real low. Then it really exists. But we'll talk about that another time. But it's kind of cool when it's all spurred by this young Drew Gill telling us that 95% of the time bass feed up.
Do you know where he's from, George?
You know, I
Canada.
don't. He's not from
Is he
Canada.
the Canada? No, he's not the Canada kid.
No, I don't know where he's from. But
Massachusetts.
he did qualify for the Bass Pro Tour. I can tell you that
Illinois.
much. Oh, he's from
Oh,
Illinois.
Illinois.
Yeah, I don't think they're known for their bass fishing there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 95% of the time they don't bass fish.
No. My man bass fishes all the time.
5% of the time they feed down.
No, wrong. So today, guys, we kicked off Bass Open number 2. Now, the weight and the importance of the Bass Open is just amazing because we got 175 odd people trying to qualify for 9 spots in the elites. And I mean, they're not going at it in a small potatoes way. I mean, these guys are all in.
Hardcore.
A lot of them are putting their financial life at risk to chase this dream. So every day of every tournament is as critical as it can be. So day 1 of the second tournament is as important as day 3 of the last tournament. And that's because you can lose the tournament on day 1. You can't win it on day 1, but you can lose it. So I took some notes here, guys. Mike Sermon. Now, I'm not going to speak for Mike Sermon, but I think Mike Sermon is trying to qualify for the elites. I might be wrong. He's been an FLW guy ever since there's been an FLW. And I'm watching him on these opens now, right? Well, Mike Sermon is leading. Mike Sermon is a veteran. He is a veteran. His buddy, who is also a veteran, will be here, sidebar, for the Cabin Fever sale.
Bernie Schultz.
Bernie Schultz is his buddy. So Bernie Schultz will be here for the Cabin Fever sale. We'll go into more detail on that later. But Mike Sermon's leading with 20 pounds, 5 ounces on Lake Wichita. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then I jump down to 3rd place, and I look at this young man from Canada.
No, that's where it came from.
Okay. Now, his personal best largemouth was set 2 weeks ago at the Okeechobee Open.
7-something.
7-11. Well, he beat that today with a 9.14.
Gosh.
And he's in 3rd place with 19.9. So they're catching him.
Imagine putting a 9.14 in your live well. I don't think I could fish the rest of the day.
You have to sit down for a while.
I don't think I could fish the rest of the day.
Gotta do it like a boss, bro. Now, I don't know who
So
you guys
cool.
are following. I know. I mean, I think I know who you guys are following. I know we're all following Tucker Smith.
Oh, yeah.
We're all following Tucker Smith. I'm not sure, Nick, who you're following. Mike, I'm not sure who you're following. But one of the guys I'm following, because I'm following like 10 guys. One of the guys I'm following, I really like this young guy. He's from Texas. His name's Dakota Ebear.
Ah, he's a good guy.
He's a stud.
Yeah.
He is a bass fishing hammer.
Yeah.
And what he did on the Bass Pro Tour and the Major League Fishing circuit is awesome. I'm hoping cameraman Nick can rally Dakota Ebear up on the show because I would love to have him on as a guest because I think he is
Spectacular.
well-spoken. I think he is a true professional. I think his fishing talents are unequaled.
Yeah. He's
that good. And guess what? My man said, okay, I don't want to lose it on day 1, so I'm going to sit back here in 18th place with 15-10, ready to pounce. And tomorrow, it's going to be cloudy, and the cloud on that lake, cloudy is good. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. Bass Open on Ouachita. I am going to tell you this. Here we go again. They are all, for the most part, looking on their scope and throwing a Demiki rig. Now, I did watch young Browning, Stephen Browning's son, this morning roll up on a bank and whack him on a crankbait and a jig and a chatterbait and what have you. He was just ripping them out of the water. I saw him on his photo blog.
So, George, you asked about who we're following, and the two that you mentioned, Tucker Smith and Dakota Ebre, I mean, they're great.
We want Tucker.
They're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
My
But
vote's for Tucker and Dakota.
yeah, me too. But I've also been following one of our favorite anglers ever, Ish Monroe.
Oh yeah.
You know, because I know he's trying to make it back into
Yeah.
the elite. So I've been following him too. And I'm wondering, you're saying about a lot of forward imaging. I'm wondering how he's fishing right now.
Well, they don't call him Big Fish Ish for nothing. And, you know, Ish is a journeyman. He's been there and done that twice, 3 times. 4th time he got the t-shirt, 5th time he got the hat. I mean, Ish is a true pros pro. So he's able to evaluate the weight of his situation on a daily basis, probably better than the young guys. And I don't think, you know, he's a very knowledgeable electronics guy. He's a big low rants pro. I don't believe for a second he shuns the forward. I think he likes to go up, down and dirty, but there's a time and a place, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna definitely tonight after the show, I'm gonna definitely see where Ish finished up, because
He's in 60th with 12-15.
okay, so he's right there, middle of the pack. They caught the hell out of fish today. So, you know, a 17 to 20 pound day tomorrow, and he's up at the top. Very important. Tomorrow's a very important day for Ish. You know, we're always pulling for Ish. We love Ish. But more often than not, when Ish gets down in the hole a little bit, like 5 pounds, he gets that big rod out. He's like, I'll bring 4 hammers in rather than five of them. So that could happen tomorrow. Hopefully we can follow him, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Mike? You got anybody on the radar? I mean, I know you're a Tucker Smith fan. I know you're a Dakota Eber fan. I know you're Ish Monroe fan. But I mean, is there anybody else out there that like you're just pulling for a lot of them?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we had Tucker on, you know, when he fished what was that big tournament they
$1 million.
they won the $1 million, and you know, him and his partner, and they were just cool guys, and I think his partner made the elites, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So his partner made the elites. Now he's trying to make the elites. I like that story, and I like those guys. Dakota Ebre, you know, just
Eber.
yeah, just love that guy, you know. And I tell you another guy that I really like, and that's Cooper Gallant. And you know, but he's in, you know. So, but we followed him a lot. And I like them. And
that's how he got in.
What I like about him is you know, it makes you think back, you know, when you were young and had the opportunities, you know, and these kids have these opportunities and they're doing this, they're taking advantage of it, and I just love it.
I hate to tell you this, bro.
What?
You can't go back in time.
No, I know. I'm just saying those kids had those opportunities and they took advantage of it, you know, or they're taking advantage.
You're not old, and you're not done.
Hey, you could
but
always
you can't go back.
You could always join the opens next year and try to make the elites.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
You're not as good as you once was.
Yeah.
But the other thing
I
cool
once
about
was
those
as
kids
good as I ever was, though.
that you're talking about, those kids, they are the nicest people you'd ever meet.
I know, that's what I mean. I just for some reason I just find them fascinating.
They're humble.
You know?
They're good.
I know. I wasn't, when I was young like that. I wasn't well spoken like that. I was more like, you know, I don't even know if I would talk to anybody like those guys do.
Well, you didn't have social media.
That's true.
You know,
There was no such thing as internet.
That's the truth. I mean, it was just totally different times, but I just find it fascinating how these kids just talk to you.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because if you really go back 20 years, 15 years into the past, you know, you had guys that put a patch on their shirt, and it reminds me of the movie with Will Ferrell where he's NASCAR driving.
Yeah.
And he does real good in that race, and his hands start going up, and he's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
I did good today. They didn't really know how to talk like that.
Yeah.
I was watching a documentary, and you guys might even watch it, but they're talking about Bassmasters and where it started. And Larry Nixon was on there, and he's talking about, he's like, I was not a good speaker.
Yeah.
He goes, I just wasn't.
Yeah. We were all hillbillies, you know, we were all, you know, considered different type of people who would go fishing. And that it wasn't so mainstream. Now it's very mainstream type of people that are into it. You know, these little hot rod guys, you know, with you know, all of the hot rod stuff, you know, and they're out there using it and utilizing it and just changing the game. They're totally changing the game. That the tools are there. They're grabbing the tools and they're applying them and they're changing the game right now. And it's all happening right in front of us. And a lot of it is these young guys and the people who are adapting are coming along for the ride, but the people who aren't adapting are just getting, you know, we're just not talking about them anymore. Isn't that weird? Our you know, Greg Hackney's and
Whoa.
no, I'm telling you. I mean, honestly,
Greg Hackney is in the news every day.
yeah, he is, but
He's got 3 things going on for him. He's making cuts. Okay.
yeah, I know.
He's a top elite pro. He's making cuts.
He's not winning anything.
Dude, how many people win a year? You know,
Well, some of these guys are winning two times a year.
I'll throw you.
do not. But the third thing Greg Hackney's doing,
I'm not saying
he is chasing Bigfoot all over the place.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I'll throw a name that I've seen on the opens that you guys know very well. I know George definitely knows him well, but you don't hear of him anymore. Charlie Hartley.
Yeah.
He's still doing it.
Dude,
Oh, he's after it, man. He's old school.
Yep.
And he's after it. George, I don't.
Charlie's a grinder.
I'm not saying that, you know, Greg Hackney, anything negative about Greg Hackney. I'm just saying.
Sounded negative.
No, I'm just saying that he's not. You know, he just. I mean, you know what I mean.
Choose your next word carefully.
You know what I mean. I ain't gonna get on that forward facing. You know what I mean.
I don't know about that.
I'm just not gonna do it.
I don't know about that.
You know what I mean.
So last year up at the Thousand Islands and the year before up at the Thousand Islands,
Yeah.
Greg Hackney made the final cut both times.
Wasn't he fishing for largemouth for a couple
No,
of those days?
wrong
I think he was.
chicken.
I think he was.
He was fishing a tube.
I think he went jig fishing in the weeds.
You're like 87,000% wrong. He was fishing a tube out the mouth of the river at Cape Vincent. A tube. And he was cracking heads.
Yeah. I'm just saying that, you know,
You better watch
the
yourself.
whole storyline has changed from, you know, the old school guys to these young electronic whippersnappers. Right?
I agree, but you know, it's interesting as I know people that go to some of these tournaments as a fan. What they love the most about your Gerald Swindells, your Mike Iaconellis, they're not catching the fish like the younger guys are anymore.
Yeah.
But they like the personalities at the weigh-in.
Oh yeah.
Where if you look at the flip side with the younger guys, they don't have that yet.
Yeah.
They're still growing into that.
Well, look at Skeeter Steve today. We were talking about his fantasy team because he's a massive fan of the sport and fantasy bass fishing.
Fanboy.
He's a big time fan boy. And he was like telling me, you know, or a group A guy and a group B guy and a group C, but you know what I really want to see? Todd Alton come on through there and just freaking whoop up on those guys because he's old school, you know.
With a chatterbait.
With a chatterbait, you know. He says, you don't believe how much I want one of those old guys, you know, those old school techniques. The old school. See how we're talking? Well, see how we're freaking talking?
Trapping grass.
You know, trapping the grass and finding the ditch and going up and flipping. Want somebody to go in there and win a tournament like that, you know, and so it's pretty cool.
I love it. And you know what? The conversation that opens up, and guess what? You can be on both sides and you can be down the middle. You know, I was talking to Skeeter Steve today and I said, you know, the fish do not know what forward-facing sonar is. Okay. You know, and I know, and cameraman Nick knows, and Mike knows, and if we're not touring pros, if we're in our club tournament and there's, 8 boats, 6 of them don't have it. One of them doesn't know how to use it. He's just that guy that's just got to, he's brand new. And, the other guy's going to have some time to shine. But the fish don't know what sonar is, whether it's side, down, or forward facing. So that guy with that trap next week on Toledo Bend and that chatterbait and that grass doing what they did for decades, he's going to bring a big sack of fish in. Now, he's going to have to be able to adapt and overcome because, as we've learned, there is a freaking shit ton of fish that don't come to the bank. But that's okay because there's a whole bunch of fishermen that don't come to the bank now.
Yeah.
There's room for everybody out there in what you do. Now, if you're a full-time touring pro and you're not like Mr. Forward-facing sonar with at least 2, if not 3 transducers on your boat, well, I don't know who you're trying to kid.
Well,
But if you're just the guys watching this show that love to fish and maybe fish some high-level tournaments, maybe you don't, they don't know what forward-facing sonar is, people. And we caught them in the spring on a red trap forever, and guess what we're going to do this year? We're going to throw a red trap in addition to our forward-facing sonar. So, it's all good, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all good, but
All right. Last question of the night. George, you're going tournament pro. You got the elites. How many graphs are you putting on your boat?
Well, I'm running 5 right now. So, not less than 5. Now, the reason I have 5 graphs on my boat right now is I enjoy electronics. I want to have 360. I like 360. That needs its own graph. I want my forward facing because I really like my forward facing. That needs its own graph. And then I like a map. So I have a graph that I just run map on. Doesn't even have a transducer hooked up to it. And then I have 2 on the console because I like to scan. So I need one with a map and one with side. I'm not going any more than that. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with perspective mode, but if I was doing this every day, my front setup would have perspective and forward, but it would be on the same graph. I would toggle back and forth. I'm not going to run an MBT 22-inch mirroring an 8612.
I didn't know if you were going to get into that forward view going out each side of your boat, down the, do 4 graphs at the console.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing the.
those guys are crazy.
I'm not doing the $4,000 MBT 22-inch mirroring the $3,500 8612 Garmin.
I think,
and then having somebody tell me that I'm actually saving money because that's so big I can split the screen. But if I may, if I'm spending $8,000 to put a 22-inch graph up front for my forward facing, I ain't splitting the screen. I'm watching forward on it. They're all saying, but you can save money because you don't need as many screens up front. No, I'm actually spending $4,000 more because I have a graph that does everything that I see on that. That's just a screen. That only shows me what's on another screen that I don't care to look at. So
well,
I'm not down with that.
I'm just, I think George said it right. Most of us guys could go out with side imaging, down imaging, and regular 2D sonar, and we can go out and have great experiences catch all kinds of fish, be competitive in our own little world of tournament fishing, be it a local circuit, a club circuit, or even a little small regional deal. You can be competitive and you can catch fish. Brian's asking, at what point does forward-facing sonar become ineffective? I mean, there's times of the year where, you know, the flip and bite, you know, in the grass down the Potomac River or down at the Chesapeake Bay, or, you know, where you just don't need forward-facing sonar. And there's times like, you know, spawning fish, you just don't need forward-facing, and
Mike,
it becomes ineffective.
according to Drew Gill, 5% of the time.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we fished 2 days last week, and forward facing was
it was a no player.
Ineffective.
You know, you didn't really need it. So there's listen, you don't get caught up in it. Now, if you're a professional angler and you're fishing all across the country and you're fishing these gigantic tournaments, you better be schooled at forward facing, or you're going to be left in the dust, just like these old school. And that's my point. These old school guys are just not adapting, and they are being left in the dust. Are they great personalities? Absolutely. Are they great people? Absolutely. Are they great fishermen? Absolutely. They're great fishermen, but they're just not going to be competitive, you know, to that point.
I'm sorry.
We'll see. We'll see how many times that these guys
we don't have to. We can pull up the classic qualification list.
I'm not saying that they're not going to be classic qualifiers. I'm saying they're not going to be winning tournaments anymore unless they're forward facing for a very large part of those tournaments.
That's
as we've seen 3 already, or 4 already that were all forward facing. That's all we've been talking about. That's all we've been reading about. Dominky rigging, this freaking rig, you know, that freaking rig, you know, all these freaking rigs that they got now, these jig heads. God dang. I mean, a jig head section back here, we have to add on an addition for these forward facing sonar jig heads now. Crazy. It's out of control. But I love it. I love it. I love the fact that these kids are grabbing a hold of that technology and they are using what's available. If it wasn't available, they wouldn't be able to use it. But it's available, and they're using it, and they're using it to the fullest extent of what it's all about. And those guys can freaking flat out get it done. And that's what I'm talking about. So, all right, we drug on long enough. This was a great show tonight. Don't forget, guys, this Saturday, couple days, not tomorrow, the next day, Smallmouth Saturday here at the shop. You definitely want to come check us out, man. A lot more of this banner, a lot more of this talk, and extend it way out for you guys. It's going to be a great time and a great event. So I hope to see you there. Until next time, we'll catch you on the next Tackle Shop Live. Right there, you took my breath away. A young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day, you called me up. You told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real.